So Andy, we'll start with COVID certification. It wasn't around for long, but how did you see that process for the MK Dons game?
Well, of course, Max, the COVID certification was made necessary by the government's Plan B restrictions that came in the middle of December. It made compulsory for every spectator coming into any ground with 10,000 or more people inside to show proof of their vaccination status, or they had to take a negative flow test 48 hours before the game. So a huge amount of planning and preparation had to be put into place, signage, organisation of teams and staff, and a huge thank you to our safety and security teams who worked so hard to prepare and deliver everything in advance. Firstly of the Oxford game, which of course ended up being postponed, but then got back in over Christmas to make sure we were ready for the MK Dons game on the 15th of January. I'd also like to thank our communications team as well for all the work that they did in terms of preparing and planning as well, in advising supporters of the guidance that they needed to be coming on the day, particularly in terms of arriving early and being prepared in terms of the documentation in their wallets on their mobile phones. That made a huge difference. Also a big thank you to the Hive. The Hive provided volunteers on the day who I sort of observed checking everything in such a friendly and engaging manner, and I think that added to the success of the day. The checks were swift, they knew what they were doing, and that made a massive difference. Also to the safety advisory group as well, who gave us the guidance and made sure that our risk assessments were all in place, and that we had different scenarios for different events happening that could have happened on the day, which thankfully we didn't have to bring into place. But I think the biggest thank you must be to our supporters. They were absolutely magnificent in terms of turning up a little bit earlier than usual in the majority of cases. They actually came well prepared. You know, they had the passports in most cases loaded onto their wallets, which just speeded things through. And they actually, you know, were very, very good in terms of the way that everything was being able to come through. And we ended up in a situation where we got everybody in on time, and that was the objective achieved on the day. So massive thank you to everybody. Hopefully we won't have to do this again, but if we did, I think we go into it with a huge degree of confidence. Everybody knows what we know what to do, how to make things easier, and you know, a big thank you to everybody involved.
On to the January transfer window. What are your reflections on the past month?
Well, it was an extremely busy one, wasn't it? We had 13 transactions, which by any stretch of the imagination is busy in January. In that short 4 weeks, we had 8 players going out, either being released by the football club or going out on loan, and we had 5 incomings as well. So I think we have to look first of all at those that went out. We wish Alice, we wish John, and we wish Lee Brown every success and thank them for the contribution that they made to Portsmouth Football Club over a number of years. We felt it was right for them to have that opportunity to move. Danny had explained to them that they probably were not going to be offered new contracts for next season, and it's allowed us to release some funds and for those players to be in a position where they can get themselves quickly sorted for 22-23 and not go into that summer window necessarily not knowing where their futures might lie, so they can get themselves organised. Paul Downing, of course, has gone out on loan to Rochdale, and then from a development basis, Alex Bass has gone out on loan to Bradford City, which is hugely important in the next step of his career. He's very much a Portsmouth player, and this will really set him in good stead ahead of next season. Hadji has gone out on loan as well, which will be good for his development, and of course in terms of 2 loans going back who hadn't had the opportunity necessary to impact too much on the starting positions in league matches. Gaz and of course Miguel have both gone back to their parent clubs, Gaz consequently getting a permanent move to Burton Albion.
And how important was it to do the business early in the window?
Hugely important. The problem with leaving your activity to the end of January is that prices go up, it becomes extremely risky, you're buying players at a premium, your deals can get hijacked at the last minute, and of course you're prone as well to predators coming into some of your players with no time to do anything to replace those players. So we were determined to get ahead of the game this window, and we were able to complete quite a bit of business by the 21st of January. we got to a stage where we got most of the outgoings out, we had most of our incomings coming in by then, and then very, very late last week there was some speculation about Lee Brown potentially having an opportunity to go out to a couple of clubs. I read that speculation on Thursday morning, and later that day, Thursday afternoon, I got a call from AFC Wimbledon expressing an interest. We spoke to Lee about it, we spoke to Danny about it. Both parties were keen to make that happen, which we were able to complete pretty swiftly. And of course that then allowed us then to look at bringing another player in, which was Aidan O'Brien, not in Lee's position, but with that, having good cover in that position with both Denver Hume and Connor Ogilvie, it sort of made sense that we could potentially do something further up the pitch, and that of course led to Aidan O'Brien coming in on transfer deadline day. The other thing that we were sort of looking at the end of that window was we did have some interest in one of our players very, very late in the day. The valuation was way below what we would expect. We made that quite clear, and there was always a risk that somebody might come back with a price that we were interested in. So we then started to look at potential replacement just in case that didn't happen. But the same as us, we got to a situation there with that particular player where his club didn't want to release him either, unless there was a significant transfer fee paid, which will not be that price probably later on when we get into the summer. So that was a little bit of excitement right at the end, but our player stayed with us, which is good news, and again we didn't have to progress that alternative option.
And how do you judge the window, successful or otherwise?
Well, I think judgment has to take place at the end of the season, because none of us know the players that we brought in. We brought them in to impact the squad, we brought them in to be successful and make us stronger. We can make that judgment at the end of the season when we see how they've all done. So we don't know, but we have to potentially then, for me, to reflect back and judge it. I judge it now, at this point in time, about how successful we delivered against the objectives that we set out. So let me just go through what those objectives were. I mean, first of all, we wanted to bring players into the squad who were going to make an instant impact. They were match ready and able to go from day one. So they gave us that immediate sort of strengthening and impact that you need in the January window. A little bit different from the summer when there's more players available, free agents on the market, and more you can go for. So that was the first thing that we wanted to do, the type of player we wanted. Then it was sitting down with Danny and understanding what positions he wanted to strengthen in. So we had the left side. He wanted a left wing back to bring in. We wanted a forward to bring in, and we wanted a right centre half. Those were the three key positions that we focused on to bring in to make us stronger. I think the next thing we wanted to do as well was to try and get a loan for Alex Bass. Alex is a big part of our plans for next season, and it's important that he gets a chance of regular first team football between now and May, and that was something that we worked with a number of League One, League Two clubs to see if that opportunity could arise, and having done that, we wanted to make sure we could bring in some goalkeeping cover that would facilitate Alex's loan out. The other strategy was to be very, very clear, because we were starting to receive interest in one or two players in November and December. Inquiries were being made as to whether those players might be made available. There's strong assets in the squad, and the players we didn't necessarily want to lose at this stage of the season unless we brought in significant fees. And we were told it was a buyer's market, but I didn't agree with that, and we have to look at getting fair valuations for our assets. So we had to have two things going on: remain firm, but if we got an offer which did meet that valuation, ensuring that we knew where we were going to go in terms of replacing those particular players. So that was important to us. And the fifth thing, I think, the next thing that was important was just looking at some of our, and this is a broader perspective, looking at our academy squad as well, as whether we could get some really, really good loans out to to non-league clubs, steps 2 to 4 in particular, to try and give them the opportunity of playing in regular men's team football, stepping up to another level, which will aid us in terms of decisions that need to be made later in the season in terms of awarding professional contracts.
And how did you do against those objectives?
Well, the three positions that Danny identified, we filled very, very early in the window. So bringing in Hayden Carter, had a very exciting young right centre back, had a full loan last season at Burton Albion, so came in really, really ready to go, had experience at this level, which was important to us. in terms of Tyler Walker coming in, again, you know, a striker with pedigree in League Two, in League One, and in the Championship. He was a very, very expensive acquisition for us, expensive loan in terms of what we had to contribute towards wages. But you know, again, it was one that Danny really wanted us to go for and invest in. And you know, we invested a considerable amount of the savings we made on the other players into Tyler. And I'm sure that between now and the end of the season, supporters will be excited about what he can deliver. And then, of course, you know, Denver Hume. And this is quite an important one because Denver represents the type of business we want to do going forward, bringing in young players with pedigree, assets to the football club who are under the age 23 or under, and Denver fitted that bill. Highly recommended, quite a bit of competition for him, as indeed there was for Tyler Walker. We got to a stage where you know, we had to negotiate a fee with Sunderland, and we ended up paying a fee in this window which represents the highest fee that Portsmouth Football Club has paid in the January transfer window post administration. So and that only came about through you know, the owners being prepared to increase the budget even further. We increased the budget in the summer with the signings of Joe Morel and Marlon Romeo. That took the budget to a place which was much higher than last year, and they've increased it again in January to enable us to deliver and pay the fee for Denver Hume. So we're grateful for that, and that's enabled us really to get into a stage of the season now where we feel we can move forward. In terms of Alex Bass, obviously we got the loan to Bradford City, bringing in Ollie Webber, who can deputise as and when we need a goalkeeper to come in for you know, should Gavin suffer an injury or a setback. We've got that position really you know, well covered now in terms of facilitating Alex's loan. And in terms of the offers, as I said, we did get those offers in. We had that offer late in the window as well, which we decided wasn't in the best interests of Portsmouth Football Club. So we held on to those players we wanted to hold into, you know, hostile interest. And you look at other clubs have done very, very similar in this window. Oxford holding on to Cameron Brannigan. You had Colby Bishop, you know, Accrington getting lots of bids in, but holding on to Colby as well, and Cole Stockton at Morecambe as well, players that attracted a lot of interest. But the January window is one where you don't necessarily want to weaken yourself, whichever club you are, unless you get a really, really good offer. So those are things that were important to us. And of course, within the academy as well, we've got a number of those boys now out and doing very, very well out on loan, and that can only be for everybody's benefit.
Does a number of outgoings mean we saved money overall?
No, as I said, Max, we've actually increased the budget in January over and above what it was in the summer, and then the summer we've increased it on last year for that extra activity. So Tony Brown did a fantastic job in negotiating the deals with the players going out, so we saved a little bit more money than we previously might have anticipated thanks to that hard work, but we've reinvested all that money and more in terms of the big transfer fee that we paid for Denver.
Was there anything else you would have liked to have done?
I think you never have a perfect window. You always want to look at what you can do and what you can reflect. And this was, you know, in terms of, for us, so one of the key strategic objectives we've got in terms of our recruitment going forward is to recruit younger talent, 23 and under, that is on the way up for the football club. We want to see more players on the way up come into this football club. And we identified 3 to 4 players that would need fees paid for. We spoke to their parent clubs, and at the moment the price for those players would be a lot higher than it might be later on in the year. So we took the decision that didn't represent necessarily good value for Portsmouth Football Club at this point, but we'll revisit those particular players. We'll monitor them now between the end of the season, and then going into next summer we will actually have that database of young players who fit that bill going forward. And I'm not talking about young academy scholars here. I'm actually talking about players who are already making an impact at first team level, so can come into the club and make that sort of impact. But of course, you know, they are going to require fees, and that's something that I think is going to be a little bit part of our strategy going forward in terms of identifying that young talent and getting best value for Portsmouth Football Club, and hopefully developing those players and bringing some excitement into, you know, young talent into the football club.
Does the £11.5 million investment in the stadium and the purchase of Roco affect the player budget both now and going forward?
Not at all. They are two separate pots of money. So, you know, the player budget really comes out of the operating P&L. We put a budget together. We made significant losses next year. I think supporters will be quite shocked when they get to see those figures later in the month as to the scale of those losses, which were funded by the owners. And again, we're going to have losses this year. But no, the owners are prepared to invest, they're prepared to maintain and then increase the budget. The stadium works come out of a different capital expenditure pot. It's totally different. And supporters will have seen that the owners have put significant equity into the club in terms of new share issues over the last few months, which actually facilitate those works and are entirely independent of anything we do on the playing side. So no, not impacted. The club has no debt. The club is in a position where the owners are prepared to back the two things quite separately. So no impact at all on the 11.5 million commitment they've made to the investment in the stadium, and of course the purchase of ROCO. Two totally separate things. No impact on the budget.
What does it all mean for the club going forward into the summer window?
Going into the summer window, the work starts now. Basically, we like most football clubs in League One, players tend to be on sort of 2-year contracts, so you tend to get a little bit of turnover each summer. Obviously, a number of those players get offered new contracts, so we're working on which players we want to be a part of, who are with us in the building, that we will want to be here for next year, and starting those discussions with those players. We have a number of options on players as well. But in terms of moving the squad forward, shaping it for the future, aligning it to the way that Danny wants to play football, to his identity, working out how we can best support him. And one of the things, as I said, that the football club wants to do, as I mentioned previously, is to really start to identify players on the way up who can really make a difference and be assets for this football club.
Are you concerned about having only 21 players in the first team squad?
I'd be more concerned if a number of those 21 players weren't going to impact us, and of course they all are at one stage or another. If we go back to where we were, we had eight players go out in January, and we've had 5 players in. One of those 8 was already out on loan pre-season in terms of Hadji, so that gives a net loss of 2 players. And as I said before, 6 of the players only had 10 league starts between them. So the players that have come in, the 5, are going to have far more minutes, far more starts between them. So actually, we're a little bit deeper in terms of players competing for positions in the squad on a regular basis. And of course, we can always supplement what we've got. We've got one or two younger talents in the academy at the moment, out on loan, if we do need some numbers to come in and supplement our matchday squad. So no, I'm not too concerned by that, given the fact that we have probably a stronger squad than what we went into the window in terms of competition for starting places.
And onto stadium developments, what's the latest on the North Stand work?
Well, as you can see, the works are well underway in the North Stand lower, in the section closest to the Fratton end. The concrete, everything else is now being set, the sand's being reprofiled, and we fully expect that work to be completed at the beginning of May. So that will then mean we will then go into the other section of the stand, and that will be work will start on that in May, so shouldn't impact too much on supporters, because most of that work will then be completed over the summer months.
And how about the South Stand?
The South Stand, again, work will complete there. We'll start there at the beginning of May. We may take one of the sections out a little bit earlier on and try and get some work done a little bit earlier if we possibly can. But again, we fully expect that work to be complete, the whole stand being reprofiled again in time for the start of the season. And that obviously is a massive project, but again, everything's been well planned through, and I'm very, very confident that as we go into the season, that certainly everybody will be able to return to their seats in terms of the start of the 22-23 season when it begins at the end of July.
What improvements have been made to the concourse in the North Stand?
Well, hugely exciting. A few things have already been seen. Supporters will have noticed that we've created a new bar in the centre of the North Stand lower. This is something that you'll see starting to be replicated elsewhere in the North Stand, and indeed in the South Stand as well. It provides us with more space. It provides us with more units. And the really exciting thing about it as well is that we can open up that particular bar so we can serve outside as well. So it enables supporters to get a pie and a pint and something to drink pre-match outside prior to the gates opening. and on top of that, at half time, we can then open up that particular area, create some more sort of seating out there potentially, and create more milling space, more opportunities for supporters to get served, and in that crucial period of 15 minutes, which is very short, serve more people. And then if we move further down the north stand, we've started now to build an enclosed covered area by the big bar, which is by the Milton end, and that in turn will mean it will encourage more supporters to be able to move out a bit far, create more milling space, and perhaps hopefully reduce the queues at those kiosks and bars as well. So really determined that we start to really improve the matchday experience here, and these are small steps towards that. One of the big things that we will now start to do is work with supporters to identify the other areas in terms of the matchday experience, where we can improve and where we can bring in new initiatives, make some fresh investment, so that we can make Fratton Park a really exciting place to come down to, and one which supporters want to spend a little bit more time here, because the experience is better than what they've been used to in the past. But those decisions have got to come from supporters. The consultation, the ideas come from them, and then we can start to make those decisions ourselves. I don't want them to come from the football club. I want them to come from supporters.
The BBC recently featured the longer term vision for capacity and the development of the site. What more can you tell us?
Well, it's hugely exciting in terms of the plans and the vision that we have, and at the moment it basically is the visions, because what we want to do is increase the capacity of Fratton Park, so we're sort of future ready for bigger crowds coming in as the club progresses. And to do that, we can now build back over the north stand. We future-proof the lower section, and that will take the stand up by another 4,000 to 5,000 seats minimum to give us a capacity of 25,000. There also may be other areas at the Fratton end as well where we can extend capacity, and some of the corners as well, to create more seats. But it comes at a cost of about £35 million, I'm told, to be able to do that. So we have to look about how we generate increased revenues and opportunities from developing the whole site. So supporters can look at the Portsmouth local plan, and already they can see ideas for what can happen there in terms of mixed commercial use behind that stand, hotel potentially. Portsmouth is totally under-resourced in terms of hotels at the moment, and here is an opportunity maybe to fix that problem. And it's quite exciting, because with the all the activity going on at the port at the moment in terms of developing the cruise ship market, there's an opportunity to tap into that as well, as as people setting out on cruises need somewhere to stay. But it's about the meeting, the exhibition, the conference space that a lot of football clubs have. We don't have the ability to expand that as much as we would like to. The North Stand will fix that, and that is something again that will make the football club more secure. What we have to do is make sure as a football club that we become more self-sustainable. We've been hugely reliant on the owners for the last 2 years to get us through COVID and beyond. But they've continued to invest. They've invested in the infrastructure this year. They've they've increased the spend in the playing squad as well. But one of the big things that's coming out at the moment, one of the big talking points, is the fan-led review. And if you really get into the detail behind the fan-led review, it's all about making football clubs sustainable, their community assets. And we've seen a lot of clubs gamble in recent years by spending money that they cannot afford in the long term on playing squads. And you only have to look at the Championship and what's going on there at the moment to see what that means. And the big thing is, the big encouragement in the fan-led review is to encourage owners, custodians of football clubs, to actually make those improvements to the stand and make sure they protect the asset, the community asset, for the long term of the football club. And that's what we're trying to do. That's what the owners are trying to do here, to make sure we've got that. And Portsmouth Football Club has is not put in jeopardy again, and has a future that it can be proud of for many years to come. And that's our duty, that's our responsibility, and that's what we'll work towards. So we may not have met those expectations on the 31st of January of lots of players coming in. Partly that was because we did our business early, but partly as well we're looking ahead to the summer, and any investment we make in January obviously has a knock-on effect into the summer. So the investments we do have to be at the right price, and that's why we're in a position where we start to work towards the summer, build again, and make sure that we're in a really strong position to progress this football club.
What's the latest down at Roco and the training ground?
Some exciting things happening at Roco. We have just started work on improving the spa facilities. New spa going into Roco, the new area. We are improving the swimming pool areas, the changing rooms, and there's an investment in new equipment as well. That's all the members will shortly start to see. And then the most exciting thing is that should all be completed in time for the early spring, at which point we will rebrand Roco as the Pompey Health and Fitness Club. And so it's seen to be a big thing of what we're all about. So that's the big thing in terms of the building. The other aspects are what we're going to do longer term on the site as well. We haven't just bought Roco just to buy a gym. We bought Roco so we can improve our training facilities, our environment, our culture, and make it an elite environment. Now, to do that, we've got to do a lot of work on the pitches. We're exploring the possibility of putting down a 3G pitch as well, down there as well, which will benefit, the academy in particular. And in terms of the building as well, just trying to create that elite environment. So over the course of the summer, we improved the first team facilities with the new analysis suites going in investment in part of the gym, creating the players a common room as well, so that when we're doing sort of the longer training sessions, there is somewhere for them to relax between particular sessions. To do that, we've moved the academy out of those buildings where it was all very tight and congested into the main building at Roco. So they now have some purpose-built offices on site, but in a way which just modernises the way we want to go. And then longer term, we will move the first team into the Roco building. And what that will do is create, again, some new sports science medical facilities, much improved. It will improve some more areas in terms of analysis, so important for the players in terms of it's not just coaching on the pitch, it's coaching off the pitch. And again, we'll be able to take that a step up. We will create a new dedicated gym area within the building. There's so much wasted space in Roco that we can use, and that will be for the first team, the academy, and an invitation to Pompey women as well to use that facility. So that's all hugely exciting, and we're working on those plans now, and at some point we'll be able to share with supporters where we are. We've got to go through, again, a bit like the plans here with the North Stand we'd like to share. There is so much at the moment that we have, so many hurdles that we still have to overcome. We need to get stakeholders on board at both sites, but we're well on the way to doing that. The conversation's there, we're open, we're talking about it, we're at the table, and this is all hugely exciting for Portsmouth Football Club.
And just finally, what are the on-pitch aspirations for the rest of the season?
Well, we had a very, very disappointing January. There's no getting away from that. We had such a good run prior to Christmas. We went on that 10-game unbeaten run. We really got ourselves really in contention for the automatic spots. And then, of course, we got hit by this dreadful COVID virus, which meant that we sort of had 3 games on the spin where we lost. We had a period where none of the players were able to come in and train. It's just knocked the momentum out of us. And so we had this very, very difficult January. But there's a lot of games still to play. There's a lot still to go for. We've got a few games in hand on some of the teams above us. And, the aspiration is still to make the playoffs. There's a really good chance that we can do that. I'm very, very confident about the players that we brought in will strengthen us, and we've got to give it every shot. At the end of the season, we will take stock as to where we are. But for now, we're really going to go for it. Danny's committed, the players are committed, all the supporters want to see us. We're all together in this, and we can give it a really good shot. I'm conscious as well that when I came into the football club, I said that this was very much probably going to be a little bit of a transition year. We were changing, we were changing culture, we were changing identity, we were changing style, and some of those just aren't overnight fixes. I mean, it's going to take, probably, I've always said, maybe, 3 windows to get to exactly the position where Danny has his players in the building and has his team. And, you have to transcend through that. And to be where we are, we want to be much higher than 12th position. We need to, we still feel really, really confident that we can kick on in what is a very, very competitive, very, very strong league this year. We're in a position where we feel that we still feel very, very confident and looking forward to, the next 19 games that we've got left to play.